What's going on, everyone? So we have a comprehensive rules update that FFG dropped about an hour ago. I was planning on doing my Mandalorian Blue video or finishing that up and posting it today, as it was a ton of fun actually recording and playing all the games. I was also doing my Set 2 pre-release, drafting for it, or drafting the video for it, and having my Set 2 tier list in the works. I even have my paper Set 2 pre-release actually tonight, so I'm going to be going to that, and maybe I'll post some pictures about that on the community tab. But all of that had to be paused for a second because this rules update's actually pretty significant. It tackles leaders and actually ends up buffing the most prominent Set 1 leader in Boba Fett. For those of you that didn't think he was powerful enough, well, guess what? He gets another buff, so there's that. There's also some other interactions that I want to mention that are decently common. But on top of all that, we also have some rules inductions. So they're actually inducted into the comprehensive rulebook and some Set 2 product drama that we're going to get to later on in the video. So this is a pretty decently sized sort of community update, and I figured it's worth a video. So let's start off and not waste any more time. We have a new rules addition to the rulebook, guys. I'm not going to go over bounty and smuggle and talk about the mechanics because, well, for one, if you watch this channel, there's a lot of videos talking about bounty and smuggle and everything because I've been playing with them over the past 3 weeks or so on video, and more so even just myself for longer. But they are added to the comprehensive rulebook. If you would like to check it out, I will leave a link to this article and that comprehensive rulebook down below so you can check it out yourself. They've also added a quality of life improvement and how they describe nested actions. For those of you that are not familiar with this term, it's an extremely common term, especially in magic. They call it the stack in magic, essentially. Basically, anytime something happens that triggers something else, let's say you have a Vanguard infantry and a Greedo, they trade, which means both when defeated triggers go on the stack, or in this term, it's just a nested action. I don't think there's any stack in Star Wars Unlimited technically, but essentially they both go into the nested actions where, one ability is being resolved and then the other ability is going to be resolved. If that ability triggers another ability, that other ability has to resolve before the Vanguard infantry resolves. So Greedo, Vanguard infantry is here. Greedo resolves, it triggers Cobb Vanth when it kills Cobb Vanth. Cobb Vanth comes on and it has to resolve. Once that resolves, then Vanguard infantry can resolve. That's essentially how it works. I know that it can be a little bit complicated, especially for those of you that don't play a lot of Magic. It becomes eventually sort of an intuitive sense if you play a lot of TCGs, but of course that's all described here and in the comprehensive rulebook, so you guys can check that out as well. But on to the big rules adjustment that we got to talk about today, and that is this line of text in white. Leader units are now considered to enter play when they are deployed and leave play when they are defeated. So the entire time Star Wars Unlimited has existed, leader units did not enter play and they did not leave play. They were just always in play the entire game, which was a little bit confusing. So overall, this adjustment, I think that makes sense, and I think it's very intuitive for most players. But it also has some major implications. Now, I will mention before we dive into those major implications, especially for something like Boba Fett, well, this does not consider leader units to be played. They are not played. They are entering play. That's a very different description because there are some cards that reference when X is played or when played. Leader units are not played. They are entering play when you deploy them. They are deployed and then enter play. And when they are defeated, they leave play. Before, they just never left play and they never entered play. They just existed. So what does this mean? What does this mean? Well, realistically, it impacts Boba Fett's and Boba Fett units most often. There might be some other cases, but these are the two that are the most prominent ones. Before, Boba Fett's, when you were to go ahead and, let's say, fight against Sabine Green, and your opponent had a Sabine on the battlefield on turn 3, and on turn 4, you were like, okay, I want to go ahead and take advantage of defeating Sabine because it's the most powerful unit they have on the board, and I want to get my action resource back, right? Well, let's say they play a Sabine, and on turn 4, you Syndicate Lackeys, which ambushes the Sabine and kills it. This did not trigger Boba Fett's leader ability. You were not able to exhaust Boba Fett to ready a resource because that unit did not leave play. Same thing goes when you were to attack with Boba Fett afterwards. Let's say you play Syndicate Lackeys, you're like, I'm going to attack with Boba Fett, get my 2 resources back, and I don't know, play something like a Crafty Smuggler. You did not get those 2 resources if you were to just defeat Sabine. If you're to defeat another unit, then yes, it would. But you did not get those resources when you defeated the leader units. Now, if you go Syndicate Lackeys, kill your Sabine, you get to exhaust Boba Fett and ready a resource. And then when you go ahead and attack with Boba Fett, you still get that trigger. You get to go ahead and ready 2 more resources. This is extremely, extremely relevant because now you can go ahead and play a Boba Fett unit, like the 3 costed one afterwards, because you got 3 resources, for example. This also impacts even the Boba Fett mirrors, right? Like if you had a Boba Fett and your opponent had a Boba Fett and you deployed Boba first and they deployed Boba, and then you ECL out a Steadfast Battalion, kill their Boba Fett, guess what? Now you could just attack with Boba Fett and ready 2 additional resources. Simple as that. Before, this did not work. You could not do any of this before, but now you can. So straight up, this is just a massive buff to Boba Fett leader. I know some people will say this is minor. It's not really that relevant. Guys, Boba Fett was the most prominent set 1 deck, and Sabine and other Boba Fetts were the most popular decks in the entire meta. These were not fringe scenarios. This happened all the time, and it made it so that a lot of people had to actually change how they were going to play their Boba Fett turns because they knew if they defeated the leaders, it did not trigger Boba Fett's ability, which is extremely relevant. This is a huge change. So this is a big buff to Boba leader. On the other note, it's a small nerf to the Boba Fett unit, although this wasn't nearly as prominent as the Boba Fett leader. How is this a nerf? Well, you can see here on attack, if this unit is attacking an exhausted unit that didn't enter play this round, deal 3 damage to that defending unit. Guess what? Leaders now enter play. So now the leader unit, even though it's readied, it is now entering play that turn. Before, it just existed all the time. So for example, if your opponent plays Sabine and you are Boba Green, and they play Sabine, and they attack you with Sabine, before you could ECL out a Boba Fett unit and kill their Sabine, because it deals 3 damage on attacks, and then it deals another 3 damage when you actually get into combat, right? So if it's exhausted, it'll deal 3 damage to the defender, and then you'll kill it with the Boba Fett unit. Now, if you do that exact play, you're not going to get this on attack trigger, because it did not actually exist. It entered play that round. Same thing goes if you're going to try to, hit any sort of leader. Let's say you have Boba Fett on the battlefield already, and your opponent plays Sabine and then attacks with it. You still cannot just kill it straight up. So this is actually a decent nerf to Boba Fett unit, but it's not nearly as relevant because a lot of the times you don't even get to use this on attack trigger in a lot of games. And even if it is the case, well, oftentimes your opponent knows this, and you're probably just going to have Boba Fett killed anyways because it's such an impactful card if they just keep attacking with all their units. And so it is a nerf to Boba Fett unit for sure, but in my opinion, it is a far bigger buff to Boba Fett leader. But in general, this is just a comprehensive change to any sort of thing that references leaving play or entering play in relation to leaders, right? For example, in this case, if you have a Boba Fett, it says when you play a unit. So this does not trigger if, let's say, you could have a secondary leader like in Twin Suns. It says when you play a unit, if your leader had a keyword, if you were to play another leader, right, in Twin Suns, you do not trigger Boba Fett because it's not playing the leader. It is entering play. So this does not trigger Boba Fett. Again, you have to play a unit with the Boba Fett leader, this other Boba Fett. It just doesn't work. So that's kind of the difference. I know a lot of people are referencing both Boba Fetts because both of them have, triggers when played or when leaves, and kind of all in relation to this new rules change. But directly, this was specifically for Boba Fett unit and Boba Fett leader because they were extremely prominent in set 1, and they arguably had the most confusing mechanic, which is leaders don't leave play. They just don't leave play. They just existed all the time, everywhere. And so I think this is a good change. It's just that it definitely did buff Boba leader. It just did. It is what it is. On another note, guys, that's all for rules changes and rules updates and all that type of stuff. Set 2 product. I wanted to briefly mention this and get your thoughts on this. I don't want to talk a ton about this because at the end of the day, we don't know the reasons behind everything. We just know what's happening. And this is an extremely common thing on social media right now. No Star Wars Unlimited Set 2 for this region, or it's reduced in product, or restrictions on how much I can order or what my store can order. On a bigger note, this one in particular talked about how, well, Singapore, assuming these two are going to remain true, is kind of getting cut support for Star Wars Unlimited, right? So these local game stores cannot actually acquire any product for Set 2. And this is not an uncommon thing. You can see in this case, they're canceling duplicate orders. Our miniature market here is canceling duplicate orders because they had a limit of a certain amount of booster boxes. This one, again, has reasons in association with Set 1 product being kind of really, really limited. So now they put this limitation on Set 2. And then this also continues, in this case, a UK retailer had their stock of Shadows of the Galaxy slashed by 80%. All of this in relation to Set 2 product and some errors, or not necessarily errors, I guess I should say, but potential problems showing up already. Overall, there's different reasons and there's different kind of impacts each one of these kind of comments about Shadows of the Galaxy product has. But in general, here's the things I have to say about this. Set 1, extremely popular. More popular than Asmodee and FFG was realizing, I suppose. They did not have enough product for it. They already planned on certain sets releasing, and they already had, it seems like, the product made up for those sets. So they didn't have additional Set 2 product produced for, the expectation that it's going to be as popular as Set 1. As such, a lot of the distributors are not actually providing as much product, or they're limiting the product that people can actually acquire or retailers can acquire. And then as a flip note, the retailers are limiting how much product the consumers can acquire. Because the ultimate goal from at least most stores is we want everyone to have a little bit of product rather than having a few people acquire a ton of product. However, it looks like as a consequence of this, certain areas of the world are just omitted or getting far less product specifically. Singapore looks to be just completely off the board, which is really quite unfortunate. And in this case, this could have resulted from two different reasons. In this case, the UK retailer stock got slashed, but this could, one, be the reason, as I mentioned before, because they want as many retailers to have a good amount of product as possible, not one having a ton. But also it could be the secondary reason, which is there are certain people and retailers that realized that Set 1 product was extremely popular, and then it went away very quickly. And as such, they're trying to acquire as much product for resale or to open and then resell singles, which if you did that, you would have made a ton of money. If I had gone and bought 8 cases of Set 1 and then opened all my packs and then just saved it until about like a month ago and then sold all my cards, I mean, I could have maybe made 200-300% on the order I made. That's how ridiculous the market was because of how big the shortage of product actually was. It was not uncommon for that to have happened, right? I myself opened, I think, in total 2 boxes of Set 1. I myself don't actually enjoy opening a lot of sealed product. I usually just like to go to drafts and events and then open my packs there. Heck, I even actually save a lot of my packs because, just a little thing about me, I save all my packs from Magic and from Star Wars for the most part so that my son can open when he gets old enough. So I've been saving packs for years. But anyways, if I had saved my 2 boxes or opened my boxes and then sold it all, I would have made, well, I actually traded one of my cards for a box and then traded the stuff I got from that box for another box. But if I had saved all those and sold them, I could have bought like 6 or 7 boxes. Now, I high rolled a little bit because I actually opened a Vader in one of them, a Boba Fett in the other. But regardless, that's kind of the situation that we would have been in if everyone kind of did the same thing. So they could be slashing certain stores in terms of acquisition of product because of that. But this all relates back to the core issue, which is Set 1 had a major product shortage. And all of this is a response of that. If Set 1 was not that popular, Set 2 would have plenty of product to be passed around and there wouldn't be any problems. So this is all both a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is, well, certain stores or certain areas potentially get screwed, right? And that is bad. And on top of that, that also means that even if you're not screwed, you also have a limitation on how much product you can buy, unless you wanted to go to like Amazon and to other people that are reselling boxes for even more. So I guess that's still bad because it costs you more. The good thing is Star Wars Unlimited is popular. Yay! that's like the core issue or the core results of this. So let me know what you think about this, guys, and also let me know what you think about the leader adjustment. I think overall, everything that's mentioned here, at least in the rules update, is a good change because it actually is very intuitive that leader units enter play and leave play, even though it is a buff to Boba Fett. And as I mentioned, let me know what you think about the Set 2 product. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'm going to be going to my pre-release tonight. Let me know if you guys want to see any sort of updates in the community tab from me. I might just post it because I'm going to have some fun, I know. I've already drafted it once in paper, and we're going to be going back for sealed gameplay. Let's go. I'll see you tomorrow.